Lockheed Martin, Gulfstream. And what my company does, so I'll tell you about the company first. My company builds components for the aircraft that you guys fly on. If you're, flying from here to Seattle and you're on a Boeing 737, we build some of the parts that go on that plane. So my job as a program manager is to work with our design team. We come up with a product to sell to Boeing, for instance. We design that. We come up with a way to actually manufacture it quickly and efficiently, and then we try to sell it to them. Or in some cases, we'll already have sold it before we design it. But so my job is to make sure that all of that goes smoothly and we end up with a product that makes money and is safe. Yes, ma'am.
How often do you develop new products, and how long does it take from the time that you get a contract to when you actually produce it?
That's a really good question, and it really depends on what you're building itself. I was recently given a new project to work on. It's research and development for Gulfstream, and we are building the outer structure of the fuselage for an airplane. It's going to be a research and development project. We're working with Gulfstream to develop a new process, and I can tell you the timeline for that. So the development, they already have this idea in their head of what they want, but nothing down on paper, nothing engineered yet. So from the time that idea comes to light, from the time that we actually start designing and put our engineers to work, is about 6 months. Then from the design portion of it, takes about 2 years. And then from there, we sort of design and manufacture at the same time. But if you look at it in a timeline, I guess, flow, you look at 6 months for the concept, about 2 years for the design, and then from there, the first piece that comes off and goes onto an airplane takes about 9 months. And so those are pretty big parts. That's the whole skin of the aircraft that we're building. Now, some smaller parts or something that may be more novel or new may take a little bit longer in the concept phase. It really all depends, but that'll give you a good timeline of what it's like. Yes, ma'am. Yes. All of those. I don't know if you heard her. She was asking what are some of the principles that we consider when we're engineering something. And some examples that you gave were environmental impact. Tell me what the other one was. Efficiency. And I said yes, because not only those, but a million factors go into this. Specifically in the aerospace industry, we have the FAA looking over our shoulder. We have the Department of Defense looking over our shoulder. And they make sure that we do our job correctly and everything is safe. But we of course, safety is first. We always want to produce something safe for you guys to fly on. We want it to be new and novel because something is already out there. We're not going to try to redesign it. The government, of course, makes sure that we're considering all of the environmental factors. We can't build with conflict material. We can't emit too many gases when we're building something. But it's all fairly regulated through the FAA. The aerospace industry has been around for long enough that we have standard processes and procedures that pretty much every company follows to a T. And if we go outside of those parameters, we have a lot of eyes on us and people telling us, shaking their head at us, saying, no, we're not going to buy what you're selling. So, yes, ma'am.
What barriers have you overcome as a people engineer, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, that's a really good question. She asked what kind of barriers I've overcome as a female engineer. When I was introduced, they mentioned that I worked in engineering management for a little while. I worked at a company called L3 Communications down in Florida, Laura, Alabama area. And I clearly remember one time when it was right after I was promoted. I had been working there for about a year so far, so I knew everybody pretty well, but I had to walk out onto the manufacturing floor and talk about cuts that we were going to be making in the assembly line. We were going to have to move people around, we were going to have to change their jobs, we were going to have to do all of this. You guys probably haven't had the opportunity to be out on an assembly line or in a manufacturing environment, but it's pretty crude out there. You know, you think you're going to be walking out onto this pristine floor, but it's not. And the people that work there work very, very, very hard, and they value their jobs immensely. So walking out there, trying to tell them that we were going to be cutting was probably the hardest thing to do. Of course, I'm walking out there in 4-inch heels, which is a big no-no on a manufacturing floor. And I'm looking up at all of these guys trying to tell them this, and they looked at me with absolute disdain. We're not going to cut, we're not going to do anything. So the way that I overcame it took a little bit of time. I had to get to know them really well. I had to instill confidence. I had to instill their confidence in me. And I think that takes time. I think it takes time with anybody, not necessarily being a woman, but it's a little bit harder for us in an old boys club type atmosphere. But the way you do that is never make a promise that you can't keep. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. If you do tell somebody that you're going to do something, make sure that you complete it, and you complete it or exceed their expectations. And I kind of talked about this earlier, but marrying humility and confidence. The most valuable thing that you can do as, particularly as a young person, maybe not even just a woman, but being a young person in the industry, is to listen to the people around you. People that have been doing that job for a really long time, they have a lot to offer. So being able to take all of the information in and then have the confidence to add on to that with either research that you've done on your own or other experiences that you've had really is the way to combat any type of stereotype or barrier, I think. Yes?
What was the hardest class that you took in college?
The hardest class that I took, well, I've got a couple of my professors here, so they might say that those were the hardest classes, but the hardest class that I took was, gosh, Dr. Malik, are you around still? Electrical engineering. Luckily, I had a phenomenal teacher who in the classroom, and I thank you every day for helping me get through that, because that was the hardest. My brain is not wired for electricity, no pun intended, but I just could not do it. So thank you, Dr. Malik. Yes.
So, doing what you're doing now, are there any classes that you wish you would have taken while you were here at SLU that you didn't take, that you might give them information and advice about?
Absolutely. You know, I don't actually know what classes are offered now, but I can tell you what I would have liked to learn more of is the collaborative effort. I would have liked to understand supply chain a little bit better, and that could come from any engineering business classes that you take. Technical writing would have been something that I would have liked to have known. Let's see. More projects. I wish I would have gotten involved in more projects while I was here. I know that SLU has an incredible amount of senior design work going on, and now I know I heard from somebody a couple nights ago, I was here for a networking event, that they now have a junior design program in the electrical group. And I think working with teams is probably the best thing that you can do while you're in college. You really get to know how to work with other people, which is exactly what you're going to be doing when you get out into the workforce. You know, you're not going to be sitting at your desk studying a book and relaying that information to somebody. You're going to be working in groups. You're going to be working in groups of people that are not like you. You're not going to be working necessarily, if I was an aerospace engineer,